Hey guys, welcome back to the Outdoorsman's Oath podcast. I'm Tyler, your host, and I'm joined here by Eric for episode 9. Hold on to your hats because today's guests are a dynamic duo. Kade and his father Tim from MaddHunts, who are trailblazers in world-class Coues deer hunts in Mexico. They're here to share the thrilling details of this season's heart-pounding adventures, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. So gear up for an action-packed journey into the wild with Kade and Tim. This is the Outdoorsman's Oath podcast. Let's let the adventures begin. So how's it going, guys? Thanks for being on again.
Thanks for having us. We're glad to be here.
Excited.
Oh yeah, so just kind of for folks who might have missed the first episode, if you just kind of want to give a little bit of history with MaddHunts and...
Okay. Well, my name's Tim Maddock. I'm Kade's father. Together with my other son Connor, we formed MaddHunts. About 21 years ago or so, I started going to Mexico on my own to hunt Coues deer, and I got really hooked on it, maybe even addicted to it, and we've been going back every year since. After about 10 years of going down there through various outfitters, I kind of learned the process and figured out how to get down there on my own with the different connections that I needed to get my own ranches and to fill out the paperwork, to bring guns across the border, and then to bring our trophy animals home after we harvested them in Mexico. So, you know, we've been hunting as a family down there for many years. In the last several years, Kade and Connor have really been bugging me about using some of my contacts to get additional ranches down there and to start bringing hunters down. And that's where MaddHunts was formed. It really wasn't my idea. It was Kade and Connor's idea to put it all together. I was really pretty happy and content with just hunting on our own down there and having our own experiences and enjoyment and that type of thing. But through Connor and Kade just hit me up, it finally came together, and we put together a business plan, and we started to lease other ranches, find new opportunities, and start bringing groups of guys down there. Our key focus is really to bring guys down as either do-it-yourself hunters or what we call semi-guided hunters. And we're really not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of outfitters and guides down there. We're trying to allow good, blue-collar guys to get down to Mexico without the added expense of paying for the fully guided hunts and outfitters, things like that. That's kind of our story. Kade and Connor are really promoting the social media side of things and marketing and advertising, and I'm usually more behind the scenes and out in the field acquiring new ranches and making contacts with the people down in Mexico that I need to have contacts with to bring this to all the hunters and bring this public so everybody can come down there with us.
Well, that's awesome. So when it comes to finding new ranches down there, I know you said you work behind the scenes. How does it just like you're driving down there and just you find a ranch and you go knock on the door pretty much, or do you have contacts to kind of steer you in the right direction?
Really driving down the road and finding a ranch is only if you get lucky. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, and a ranch owner, happens to meet you or see you, or recognize that we're from the U.S. and that we look like hunters, we dress like hunters, and they see you at the parking lot at the gas station and they're like, hey, I have a ranch. Most of the time those contacts don't go anywhere, but sometimes they do. I work with about 6 different Mexicans out of Hermosillo, and these gentlemen, they go through their contacts, family contacts, friends, neighbors. Some of them are really big, and this is a full-time job for them to find me and other outfitters ranches. And then some of them just have a ranch, and they help me get their family and friends ranches, neighboring ranches as well. But for the most part, it's a it's a constant work in progress. It's nearly a full-time job. This time of year, I'm going down every 2 weeks, looking at new ranches, vetting them, looking at the different countryside, the ranch house accommodations, the quality of the deer herd, the numbers of the deer, how much water there is on the ranch. It's quite the process. Not every ranch is good. We turn down more ranches than we actually lease or hunt or buy tags on. It's really an extensive process to be able to find these opportunities for guys to come hunt.
So if somebody wanted to get down there and go with you, I guess how does that process work?
So a lot of it is we try to figure out what their style of hunting is. What are they looking for? Some guys, they're new to hunting. Some guys are, been hunting for 30 years. And so the first thing that we do is we figure out, we get with them. They contact us through our website, our Instagram, our other social media. And we're able to chat with them and figure out kind of what are they wanting to do. There's a ranch for almost every scenario. And so we then take that information and we then turn it over to our contacts down there, and we do what we can to figure out what ranches they have and we have available that we can offer to them. And once it's offered to them, a lot of times we try to bring them 2 or 3 ranches, and we can talk to them from there and figure out what ranch interests them the most. And then we get deposits and the ball rolling on gun permit application paperwork and all that good stuff.
Is that a pretty lengthy process then to go through all of that with the gun permits and everything like that?
It can be. We tried this last year we've really shortened it down. It used to be there's a bunch of information that we need to gather, as well as that they need a picture of your driver's license, they need a picture of your passport, and trying to email back and forth and get all of these things was a hassle. He was the one dealing with all of that, and so we've sort of streamlined it, and they can go onto one spot, and they answer all the questions, fill out all the stuff. They have to verify that it's correct, and then they have to upload the pictures with that same application, and then it gets sent to us, emailed straight to us, and then we can, when it's time, give that information to our contacts down there so they can get it filed, and we can get the gun permits back for them to hunt.
Okay, and then I guess to kind of piggyback on that, is it the same process for, say, if someone has a suppressor on their rifle? Is there more kind of stringent rules?
Yeah, the truth is the U.S. doesn't necessarily care, but Mexico will not allow you to bring a suppressor. So everything down there right now is suppressor free. We're not allowed to bring a suppressor to Mexico. I don't recommend anybody tries or does, or a homemade suppressor. It's at this point in time a quick way to land yourself in a Mexican prison. So
it doesn't sound very fun.
No. But the gun permit process it's a simple process. We've streamlined it. It's just a very dot your I's and cross your T's process. We want to make sure, and you want to make sure as a hunter traveling down there, we want to make sure that the make, model, serial number of the gun is perfect. It's spot on. We haven't transposed any letters or numbers. We have everybody's name spelled correctly. Because when you go down there to hunt and you're bringing your firearms with you, it's the wrong time to get turned away at the border. That, hey, your letter B, you marked down as an 8 on your paperwork, and on your rifle, it's a number or a letter B and a number 8. They're really different or easy to mix up in the paperwork. So we don't want to have any of that, because the option is really not good at that point. You're more or less going to be denied and sent back across the border. You won't be able to bring your gun to camp that season. You'll have to delay everybody, going down to the ranch. You'll have to delay yourself maybe getting down to the ranch. So we've streamlined it, and we check it and recheck it and triple check it to make sure that we don't have those kind of problems when we're down there. So it's a process. It's not a difficult process, but it's just a thorough process.
Is there anything else you're not allowed to bring? Like, is there any magazine restrictions, or, I mean, can you bring semi-autos, bolts, everything?
Yeah, basically you're not allowed to bring any 22 calibers, whether it's a 22 short, a 22 long rifle, that's out. You're not allowed to bring anything above an 8mm, which I think is about a 32 caliber. So your 338 Lapua or something like that is out. That's a no-go. You're not allowed to bring AR-15 platforms down there. So you can bring the bolt action, that still have a collapsible stock, and they look similar, except it's a bolt with a magazine. And you can bring that. You should probably limit yourself to just 5 or 10 round magazines. I've never tried to bring a 20 or 30 down there, to be honest with you. So I really can't answer the question from that aspect, but I would keep it at 5 or 10. You don't want to look like you're bringing military type of rifles down there. So it's very similar to our government here. If you go into your local DMV and go to one booth and ask them a question, they'll tell you one thing. And if you go to the DMV down the street and ask them the same question, they'll tell you something different. So sometimes in Mexico, one military guy, one customs guy, one federale will tell you one thing, and then you go to the next stop along the highway somewhere, and they tell you something entirely different. So staying away, steering clear of some of those military-looking platforms, steering away from 20 and 30 round magazines is probably a good idea. For
so semi-auto is fine as long as it's like wood stock or something.
No, bolt action only. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So bolt action. Okay.
Even a shotgun, we're limited to pump action. We're not allowed to bring semi.
Okay. So no semi-autos, period.
Correct.
Okay.
And in all honesty, there really isn't that much of a necessity for them down there. So you can hunt everything we hunt just fine with a bolt gun or a pump action shotgun. You can really do everything you need down there. Maybe the worst possible thing is if you're calling in coyotes and you miss a few rounds and you're only shooting a 5-round magazine or something, but you can't rack in new shells fast enough. But it's not usually the case. We've got plenty of firepower with our with our bolt action guns.
Okay. Well, thank you for that info. So how'd the season go for you guys? I know I've been seeing the YouTube videos and on Instagram. It looks like it was pretty action-packed.
Yeah, we went into this season with high expectations. We had some really solid ranches. We put a lot of work into stuff, and speaking for everybody in our company, I think we drastically overshot those expectations, and we did it way better than I think we even thought we would. We killed a lot of really good deer. Some of them we've got sitting here with us, and we'd love to show you guys. But from a company standpoint, we did extremely well in all aspects. We got a lot of good content for videos, and we're getting those up on YouTube and stuff now, and it's gaining some traction. So we're super happy with that. We had a lot of success with getting some good deer down, and it just overall is a phenomenal year for us.
And not to mention that, but it was a really bad year across the board in Mexico. They're dealing in Sonora, the state of Sonora in Mexico. They're dealing with one of the worst droughts that they've had in the last 50, 60, 70 years. And so a lot of camps did not do as well as they would have liked to have done. A lot of outfitters, a lot of guides, a lot of, guys that go down there on their own just didn't have the success that you normally see come out of Mexico. We did. We didn't kill any, mega giants this year, but we had a fantastic season of killing deer. Shot a lot of great deer, and deer that anybody would be happy with. But it was really a fun time, and our hunters went away real happy. So we're glad to report that.
So from the business side again, that's like, so is that kind of then like your model on that is like you just help people find places to hunt and help them get through the process to get there to hunt?
That's really it. I mean, we're perfectly capable of taking guided hunters down there. And we're not saying that we won't. If that's something that somebody calls us up and they're interested in, we can do guided hunts. But that's a segment of the market in Mexico that's pretty tapped into. There's, a lot of them are my friends, but there's other guides, there's other outfitters that are successful and have that pretty well covered down in Mexico. So we didn't want to just throw our names into the hat and do the same old that all the other guides and outfitters are doing. We wanted to do something to find our own niche that was going to put us in a space that we could have less competition. I mentioned some of these guides and outfitters are my good friends down there that I've known for many, many years. I'm not trying to step on their toes, or we don't want to necessarily compete head to head with them or take business away from them. What we're trying to focus on is getting guys down to Mexico that want to go down to Mexico that may not otherwise have the opportunity to pay $7,000-$8,000 for some of these fully guided hunts. We can get into do-it-yourself hunts for many cases half of that, and allow guys to go down there and hunt a quality ranch. They can do it on their own. Most hunters we find are more than capable of going to a ranch and finding and stalking and hunting and shooting and skinning and cleaning and prepping their game and cooking dinner for themselves. Most guys can do that on their own. So the thing that we discovered that the guys really can't do or don't know how to do is to find a ranch in Mexico to hunt, to get the paperwork for your gun permit in Mexico, and to be able to do the paperwork and have the proper tags and paperwork to then bring your trophy animals and guns and everything back to Arizona. So we're trying to streamline that process, do it at a lower price point, and still provide a high quality opportunity for working class guys, for blue collar guys, for guys that just love the hunt. They're solid outdoorsmen. They're solid being on their own. They don't need a babysitter to hold their hand and say, hey, look, here's a mountain. We're going to go find some deer over there. There's a deer. Why don't you shoot that one? Most guys, or many guys that are going to places like Mexico, are more than capable of hunting and doing these things on their own. And we want to provide them a means to which they can get out there. The reason we set up the two different sides, the semi-guided is kind of an opportunity for us to bring guys that have never been into Mexico. They can come, we can have a MaddHunts guide in camp to guide them through the border, to guide them through the tag process, to show them the camp location, and to show them how to properly cape out their animals and prepare them for the return trip home, and then to actually bring them home. It's semi-guided in the sense that there's a MaddHunts experience guide there to show you that process, but not necessarily to go out into the field with you each day to say, hey guys, we're going to hunt over here, we're going to glass here, and we're going to shoot this deer, and oh, you need to shoot that deer. You're still able to hunt on your own and do it on your own, but we use it as a teaching opportunity to help you learn that process. So in future years, you could come back and do it again as a do-it-yourself hunter, as opposed to a semi-guided hunter, pay even less money, but now you still have the opportunity to go back to potentially the same ranch that you were there before. If you're the type of guy that wants to learn a ranch and go back to the same place year after year after year, or maybe that's not for you. Maybe you want to go to a different ranch the next year and experience different parts in Mexico. We can accommodate that too. But either way, those are kind of the two categories of hunters that we'd like to fill that niche and create those opportunities for those types of guys or gals. We're getting some women that are coming down and hunting as well, but for those types of hunters that we can create that opportunity for them in a safe and legal way to go down to Mexico and hunt world-class Coues deer, mule deer, gold turkey, javelina, all those things. So
Yeah, I love that, because even for me, just different states is hard enough half the time to navigate, like licensing and regulations and everything like that. So I can't imagine going to a different country and having to try to figure all that stuff out.
Correct.
Absolutely. There's a lot of rules for like bringing your animals back. That we hear of guys every single year. There's lots of people that they go to bring their horns and hide across the border, and the border confiscates it. And so for a lot of people, that'd be really tough to go spend all this money and all this time and this energy to go down, and you didn't necessarily know what you were doing, so you get your trophy, it gets confiscated, and it ends up ultimately getting burned, and you never see it again. And so fortunately at our company and what we do, we've never had that happen. And we've been,
knock on wood.
Yeah, fortunately. But I know of other outfitters and stuff that sometimes it can be a problem. And it, not for the outfitter, but for clients that just come down and assume that, oh yeah, it's the same. And, if you go shoot a deer in Arizona and drive it back to New Mexico or whatever states you want to do that in, it's not a big deal. But bringing it across the border, there's a very certain way that it needs to be prepared before it crosses the border, and sometimes that gets overlooked and it gets stolen.
That skull the skull cap has to get cleaned off. It has to be free of any hair or meat or any of the blood. It's got to be cleaned properly in order to get it home. A lot of guys will European mount them, and that's okay. You can still bring it home, but now you've got the entire skull that you've got to clean and pick all of the meat and the brains and tissue and everything, all that little rawhide sinew stuff that's connected to this. But if it's not clean enough, they will confiscate it. And when it's confiscated, it's done. You're never going to see it again. It's gone. There isn't a second chance. They don't say, hey, why don't you guys head back for a couple hours and take your pocket knife and whittle away at some of this stuff. It's gone. So, it's important that you do that. The capes, the hides have to be free of ticks. There cannot be any ticks or other, parasites, bot flies, coming off of the skin or anything like that. They got to be free of all of that. Or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife biologists, they'll deny them, they'll confiscate them, and it's all getting burned and thrown away in the trash can at that point. So, we have experience with all that. We know what they're looking for. We've done it numerous times. And we want to be there to show guys that have never done it before how to do it. So in essence, they could go back on their own if they wanted to in years to come.
Is this the American side that holds all these regulations, or is it
Both.
the Mexican? Oh, it's both.
There's different regulations on different sides. The big thing for Mexico, going into Mexico, is the gun permit. That has to be spot on. That's an important, thing right there. Your numbers have to be right. Your gun permit has to all have matching numbers. You have to present your guns to the military. They sign off on it, and you're fine at that point. Mexico has these green tags. It's just basically a zip tie that's on there. But green is for a Coues deer. There's different colors for different animals. But Mexico, once you've killed that animal, it needs to be tagged, and it needs to have the appropriate paperwork filled out. And when you're traveling in Mexico, if you're just traveling, all the bucks I have are from Mexico, but if you're traveling with your horns and there's no tag on it, you could, in theory, get in a lot of trouble for having, just like the US, for having horns that aren't properly tagged. So Mexico has their own set of rules, as does the US side. When you cross the border, you have to fill out some paperwork for the US side to make sure that you're able to bring that rifle back into the US. They actually run your serial number through the FBI database to make sure that it's not been involved in a crime, and it's not, wanted for any illegal activity. That paperwork all has to be presented. It has to be checked off and signed off before you leave the country with that gun. And then when you come back into the country, they want to see all of the paperwork that is associated with this green tag. There's several. There's a what's called an UMA number, and there's a certificate that each ranch gets. It's basically the ranch registration that allows that ranch to have hunters on it. So you have to have that a contract for that, a copy of the UMA certificate, and then there's several U.S. papers that need to be filled out with the Mexico stuff. None of it is difficult, but it's essential to do it legally in Mexico and to bring those animals back to the U.S. What we do is we provide our hunters with templates, and I even go down with a template so that I remember how to fill out those forms and put the correct information in the correct blanks. And we've never had a problem there either. And they're with some of those forms, they're really flexible about helping you to fill it out at the border, that type of thing. It's not a complicated process. I don't want to make it sound crazy and scare people away. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not that smart of a guy, but I went down there and I learned the process, and just through repetition and doing it several times, I learned the process. And we go back year after year after year, and we want other hunters to be able to do that as well. And we want to help get it out there that you can do it without the aid of a fully outfitted camp and fully guided service. So that's where we're at.
Are the tags down there, are they kind of like over the counter then? Or are they like, do you have to draw them at all?
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so basically each ranch, before it gets hunted, it has to get registered. And once they get registered, they get what's called an UMA number. And that UMA number correlates to how many tags can be allotted on the ranch. And so they go in and they have their different requirements as to how they determine how many tags they will allot to particular ranches. And then what the rancher then is able to do is they're able to get a hold of the contacts down there that help. I don't know what exactly you call them, but they're the guys that are connections that they go and they find the ranches. So
kind of like a broker.
Yeah.
Kind of like a real estate broker, except they're dealing with hunting ranches.
Exactly. And so they get with one of these guys, and then that broker essentially will come to us, and he'll say, hey, I got this ranch, these ranches. And we'll say, okay. And we can look and see how many tags are offered on the ranch. Oftentimes, they offer too many. So if a ranch offers 10 tags, if you go and shoot 10 deer on that ranch in particular, it's probably not going to be very healthy for the deer population. That deer population after the first couple of years is going to really be struggling. And so what we do is we look at the ranch. We talk to our contacts down there. We talk to as many people as we can. We gather as much information as we can. And then we, on our end, decide how many tags we believe that this ranch could sustain year after year. So oftentimes most guys will just cut that UMA number in half, and they'll say, okay, they offer 10 tags, we're going to sell 5. And those 5 tags, then we are allowed to go to people at that point and sell 5 tags on that particular ranch, and we'll have to pay the ranch owner. We'll have to pay our broker or our contact down there a cut of it, and then obviously we're going to take a cut of it. And so there's multiple people that get paid throughout that, and then they're allowed to go down there and they're allowed to hunt that ranch in particular for that year. And if they choose to hunt it again, then that's what we're hoping they do.
So, like, you showed us the green Coos deer tag. Do they have like doe tags too, or is it bucks only? Is there like any deer tags? Is there tags for every specific animal?
The tags are really a means for U.S. hunters to go down there and then to export their deer or bring their deer back to the U.S. If a rancher wants to shoot deer or javelina or mountain lions or mule deer or whatever, they'll shoot them if they want to. And I don't know that that's legal or not legal for the ranchers to do, but they'll do it. It's like going back to the U.S. in the 1960s, a long time ago, that there are rules, but there's not the equivalent of a game and fish officer that's driving around these back roads and, checking people and that type of thing. So it's very loosely monitored. If a rancher wants to shoot a doe, they'll shoot a doe. If they want to shoot a buck, they'll shoot a buck. Part of what we have to cut through is what ranchers or their cowboys are shooting deer themselves and what ranches are not. We don't want ranches that are shooting does or shooting bucks on their own, because we're trying to keep those trophy deer for us. I've been in camps where they will go out and shoot a small buck or a doe the first day or two to bring home meat for camp and the cowboys and that type of thing. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea, because you're kind of stealing from, the next year or 2 or 3 worth of deer that are there. But we're looking for ranches that don't want to kill does. And although you guys coming from back east probably have a whole different perspective on this, because you need to kill the does to manage the deer, because in some places the populations need that management tool. But down here, we're hunting sometimes 20 square miles, 30, 40, 50. We have ranches that are over 100 square miles, and there isn't an overabundance of deer where we're trying to manage the population through harvesting does. If maybe that's what you were getting at. But
yeah, kind of. Because even here in South Dakota, that we get in the prairie, it gets super open, kind of like that. But in my backyard, I'll have like 40 does show up at one time.
Yeah, out here, you want to preserve the does down there, because that's your reproduction, that's your future of deer hunting. So you preserve the does. What Kade is saying with managing the bucks is exactly true. The UMA number, the ranch registration, if it was 10, we cut it down to 4 or 5, simply because what they're saying is that based on their criteria, you can kill 10 bucks a year off of that ranch and still manage a healthy population. If you do it, you're just not going to manage a trophy level of deer. The herd will survive just fine shooting that many. But if you want the trophy deer, if you want, some of the bigger deer that are going to get older and heavier, and we got a bunch of stuff. Let me know when you guys want to see all that. But you want to manage the ranches for the future, and it's I'm not a biologist. I don't claim to be an expert, but there's just a certain element of common sense to it that we want to get down there, and in the beginning we want to shoot a fewer amount of deer, and maybe we see opportunity where we can raise the tag numbers, still within the UMA regulation, but we don't necessarily need to leave it at half. But they have droughts, they have predation, they have different things that their herds can suffer from. So we want to make sure that we're managing the herds. We want quality deer, that these kind of bucks that are there and available for our hunters to shoot.
Do you have any? Because I have one more question on that before we get into the hunting. Do you have any more? I guess just want to get into the hunting, I think.
No, I do have one question, kind of related to hunting, kind of related to customs. So say a fella goes down there for one of your guys' predator hunts, and he shoots a lion, and he's like, hey, I shot this lion in Mexico. I want to take it back to the States and get a full mount on it. Is that possible, or how would that work?
It is a possibility. You need to get a CITES permit for that, and it's a time-consuming process. So that's something that you would need to call us ahead of time and let us know that you're interested in that. And in order to bring the lion home, everybody wants to shoot a lion. The truth is, even in Mexico, I've only seen 1 or 2 lions the entire time I've been down there in 21 years. They're not like coyotes that you see them every trip or every time. They're still a rare animal to have come in. And it's not that common, but there is a CITES permit. It's a process. It's paperwork. It's an additional expense. It is something that can be done. It's not completely impossible. I know guys that have done it, but it's not a common thing to do. It's not a common practice to bring those lions home. Lots of guys shoot lions when they're down there, but to get them home is a whole nother ballgame.
Okay. Well, thank you for elaborating on that. 'Cause we have lions here, so like if we wanted to shoot a lion, we could. But I was just kind of curious, like say someone from Ohio or something where they don't have a good lion population. Just I see someone thinking that's cool, like, hey, I shot this in Mexico, let's take it home.
Right. The ranchers down there would just as soon that you killed all the lions. They don't want the lions down there. It's not good for their calving and cattle operations. But there's a legal process as well. And, before you go down there to shoot a lion, it's best to kind of know where you are with the legalities of it. But it can be done for sure.
Okay. And then as far as the camps themselves go, I know you said there's housing on some of the ranches. Is there I'm trying to think, that Meat Eater episode when they were down in Mexico and that little woman was able to make them food? Is there that on your guys' ranches, or is that just kind of TV theatricals?
No.
Yeah, we got a lot of that as an opportunity. It obviously we can't just get a cook down there. It obviously costs money, but for that added charge, it's something that we offer, and most people will take you up on that. Basically you don't have to bring the food down there anymore. You don't have to worry about cooking it. When you come home, when you're done hunting and you're tired and exhausted, it's been a long day. Food's there and it's ready. And so they got food ready and cooked for you. And I think every camp we had this year had a cook on it. And I think most camps down there do. In my opinion, it's absolutely the way to go. It's some of the best food out there.
More of our hunters prefer to have a Mexican cook and Mexican food. I mean, who doesn't love traditional Mexican food? Flour tortillas, corn tortillas, carne asada, and all of these, Mexican dishes, tamales and burritos. I mean, who doesn't love that? So most guys, they know that for their own hunt, they're going to have to go down there and spend X number of dollars buying and bringing food themselves. For a very realistic and similar price, we can hire a Mexican cook and have them cook traditional Mexican dishes and food for you. Most guys, that's a no-brainer for, but teach his own.
Yeah, that'd definitely be the way I go.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely probably way better than Taco Bell.
Oh,
absolutely.
100%.
I guess my last question about that before we get into the hunts because I know you kind of mentioned getting people to eventually be able to do it on their own. Is there any public land or any need for like an Onyx app or anything, or is it pretty much you have to find a rancher?
So we would essentially we have two different hunts and primarily, and it's a semi-guided, which is kind of what we told you before was the teaching opportunity, and then there's the do-it-yourself tags. And so essentially the process would be very similar in the sense that you would still come to us. You'd say that, hey, I'd like to come hunt down there, but this time I'd like to do it myself. I think I got the paperwork, I got the grasp on all that good stuff, and I'm ready to take a swing at it myself. And so we come up with the ranch, figure out what ranch we're going to get you on. Maybe it was the ranch from the year before, and we just the cost of having one of our representatives in camp is now gone. So a lot of times it can cut the price down even more, and they're responsible to do all of that stuff themselves. We're still getting them we're still helping them through the process of getting the gun permits. We're still figuring out what ranch they're going to be on, making all of those arrangements, and they're able to then go down and just do it themselves and not have a representative in camp. And so I think the biggest thing is it cuts the cost down even more than what a semi-guided hunt has.
But you had mentioned Onyx, and we don't have any affiliation with Onyx other than we're users of it ourselves. And so these ranches, when I go down and scout out these ranches and look at these ranches, I'm marking every turn, every junction, every fence, every water hole, where the ranch house is. I'm marking those things as I go on these ranches so that, for example, if you both wanted to go, we would encourage you guys to have your own Onyx subscriptions. I can send you, or Kade is better at sending you, the entire Onyx file that we have for that specific ranch so that you can be down there. And Onyx is very effective. I mean, you can download things offline. So when you're down in Mexico and there is no cell service, there is no anything around, you still have an offline map to use that we've created for you and provided to you. That's they're spot on. I mean, we all use Onyx. We had Drew Miles from Tricer Tripods down there this year, and we just gave Drew, he's really DIY minded kind of guy as it is. He's never been to Mexico hunting. He's never been to these ranches before. He ended up killing his buck on the first morning, and great buck. And we gave him just the Onyx spots of all over the ranch. And he, just like an expert, a veteran that had been there for 10 years, would go to all these different water holes. He'd check trail cameras for us. He'd shoot javelina off these water holes. We didn't have to guide him or show him around or hold his hand in any way, shape, or form. We were there in camp with him, but he got all over the place and really was able to enjoy the hunt through the Onyx app and the waypoints and data that we gave him. You know, it's the only way to go as far as I'm concerned. And we use a crap out of Onyx.
Yeah, and the ranch that we were on, and he was able to do that. It's this ranch. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's well over 100 square miles.
Yeah,
it's. I mean, it takes. I mean, from the complete opposite sides of the ranch, it's well over an hour drive in a side by side. Cruising down the road to get to one end to the other. So it's a big piece of land that he's able to just navigate and get to these spots that he's never been to before, and he's just praying that we got it right and that these pins are accurate. And so that's one of the big things that we do that's been extremely helpful to a lot of our guys down there.
Onyx is the ticket. It really is.
Okay, and then I promise we'll get to the hunts. I just keep thinking of things. So with the DIY hunts, so like you guys explained, you'll help with all the paperwork, how to get down there. Do you send a Google Maps address, and then say we were to go down there, we'd fly to Phoenix or something, pick up a rental car, and then just head straight to the ranch? And would there be a contact at the ranch that would kind of show us around, or how would that work?
Yeah, with that, most rental car places won't allow you to take a rental car into Mexico. So you would more than likely need to take your own truck. or work something out with us on a semi-guided hunt. That is maybe one of the downfalls of that, but it's something that we can talk through and manage that piece. We can find a way to manage that with you all. We have the ability to have our Mexican contacts meet people at the border if that helps them feel more comfortable. We may have the ability to meet you at the border depending on what our schedule is. We're here to work things out, these details out with people, and not just be a cookie cutter, one size fits all operation. This year we sent a guy down to hunt mule deer, and he felt more comfortable paying a Mexican to meet him at the border and to basically take him to the ranch to follow. Well, our hunter followed the Mexican worker to the ranch. He felt more comfortable with that. I think that we went to our guy, and they charged him a couple $100 in fuel and their time to do it, and it was a big deal to him, and it was worth the added expense. We don't make money off of that. That's not what we're trying to do. We just passed along the cost of having him meet a Mexican that was familiar with the area, that knew the process of coming and going to that ranch, and was able to basically escort him to the ranch. And that made the difference for this particular hunter on his mule deer hunt. Yeah. So we can make those things work.
Yeah, he was in that guy in particular. He was the only person going, so he was completely alone. And so driving through Mexico for the very first time by yourself for a lot of people is a little bit nerve-wracking, especially just trying to navigate everything. So sometimes we obviously prefer people to travel in groups. Groups are just it's more difficult to get lost as a group. It's safer to travel in groups. Groups tend to be a little easier in the traveling. They take longer, but we've got different options and different ways to help anybody that wants to go down there.
Yeah, that I think especially alone, that would be the way I'd want to go, because you hear all the stuff about Mexico and the border, and I mean, who knows how much of it's actually true, but you still paint a picture in your head, and you're like, well, if I'm just driving through Mexico alone, what could happen? I mean, you hear about cartels and everything else.
All of that exists there, and to some extent it's all true. Our experience with the cartels has been extremely minimal, almost non-existent. I'm not saying that it's not true, and I'm not saying that you can't get yourself in trouble, but most of the time when you hear of people getting in that type of trouble in Mexico, it's because they stuck their nose somewhere that it should not have been. Sometimes people have the attitude and the opinion that there's no laws, there's no rules in Mexico, and nothing is further from the truth. There's lots of laws, just like here in the U.S., just like here in Arizona. There's laws, there's rules, and we follow those rules, and we don't get in trouble. And when we break those rules, we find ourselves in harm's way. So with that said, I'm careful when we go down to Phoenix, where I travel in Phoenix, and where I go at night, where I go alone. I don't put myself in harm's way, and I recommend that for anybody that goes to Phoenix, let alone to Mexico. The other thing I would say is a lot of people don't believe everything that they hear on the news, all of the politics and everything. That so much of that is following a narrative, and it's pushing things that are not ideas that are not fully vetted out, or situations, and they're trying to say this or that, and you can't always trust what you hear on the news either. And be careful with the rumor mill and what people are telling you. That's all I would say. But we've been doing it for 21 years down there. I took my 17-year-old daughter down there this past year. I obviously feel comfortable with that, or I wouldn't have brought her down there. So we feel like that when you follow the rules and have all of your paperwork and legalities in order, you should find yourself with safe travels and an enjoyable trip.
For sure. I think in my opinion, everybody's heard some wild stories. I mean, there's always stuff that you can hear about. I mean, we've had people that have talked to us about going down there, and then they look up wild stories on the internet, and you can always find some crazy stories. But in my mind, it just go down there and focus on hunting. You go down there, you go to your ranch, you hunt, then you can go home. There's of the only stories that I know that are true of hunters being down there getting into trouble, they leave out the part that they were in Hermosillo and they were going to bars and clubs, and that's where people get in trouble, and that's where people get into some real trouble. And so, avoiding that kind of stuff, exactly what he said, just don't put your nose somewhere it doesn't need to be while you're down there.
Agreed.
Okay. Oh. Just like anything else, the media will portray it one way and then it paints that negative picture in people's minds. So
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So, Kade, I think you're ready to talk about the hunts. I know you got pretty excited about it earlier when I brought it up.
Yeah, for sure. We did really good. We had some guys go down there this year of pretty much all walks of the hunting world. Like he mentioned, we had Drew Miles and the Tricer crew down there. He's a very experienced. He's a big name hunter in the industry. We had a guy down there that it was his first deer he's ever shot at all. And so we had everything in between.
It's right here, isn't it?
Actually this is the buck that he was able to kill. Really solid coos deer. It's his first deer in general. And so
his name is Barry.
His name's Barry, and he's 72, I believe,
and it's the first deer he's ever killed.
And you don't keep the rack?
We have the rack right now because we feel like we have the best coos deer taxidermist in the world, and we talked him into using that taxidermist. So
okay,
when we take our animals to the taxidermist, it's just my opinion, and maybe I'm paranoid, but we always take the horns home with us until it's ready to actually get mounted on the deer. I worry that his barn burns down or something and our horns are lost. So I'd rather keep them in my possession than put him in the taxidermist's possession. He's a great guy.
I was just worried that he didn't want his first deer. That's like that.
Yeah, no, he lives in California, and so he's a ways away from us, so he doesn't have the ability to be back and forth, and so he was able to leave him with us, and then we'll get his mount to him when he's done.
Okay.
This is a buck that we had another guy come and shoot, also from California. He is a more experienced hunter than Barry was. This guy's killed a couple of coos deer, but he's never killed as nice a buck as this. I took him to his ground blind. He killed this buck over water. I took him to his ground blind. We got there at 7:00 in the morning. I literally got a text. I want to say it was like 8:32 in the morning. Hey, BBD, come get me. I can see the deer laying, 40 yards away. So this was his target buck. It came in first thing in the morning. But the crazy thing is he saw 15 or 20 deer just that morning, which by Coos Deer Mexico numbers, that's a lot of deer. This isn't some of your states back east that have, mobs of deer coming in and out of fields. It's usually lower deer populations, but he killed a fantastic buck. It's the biggest buck that he's ever killed. He was super, super excited about that deer. So what else you got over there?
Yeah. We got, this is a buck that my younger brother, Connor, that he was able to get to kill. Super crazy buck. I mean, these G2s on this buck are crazy long. I think they're
over 9.
I think both of them are over 9 inches, which for a coos deer, I what would you say is average on a coos deer for G2s?
Sometimes only 6 or 7 inches. One of the things, I don't know what your viewership demographic is like, but I'm assuming it's probably more guys that are from back east and more familiar with eastern whitetails and coos deer. But this is a miniature version of your eastern whitetail. It behaves very much the same way, but our bucks down there on these ranches are going to range from 110, 115, 120 pounds on the hoof. That's not gutted. That's not hanging weight. That's on the hoof. We've weighed them whole, guts in. And so our Boone and Crockett score for a Coues deer typical is 110 inches. And so you guys probably, well, maybe not you guys, but a lot of guys from back east kind of scoff at that. And, hey, that's just a little tiny deer for us. But for Coues deer, these are world-class animals. These are giant deer when you classify them as Coues deer, and when you categorize them against other Coues deer. Shooting these kind of bucks on public land here in Arizona is doable, but it could take you many, many years to find this caliber of deer.
Absolutely. I think we have a couple videos on our YouTube right now, and we have some more that we're not quite published yet, but we measure a bunch of the stuff on these deer. I mean, what's the circumference of their neck, ear tip to ear tip, from their eye to their nose. And a lot of these guys, they look at these deer and they judge them the same way that they would an eastern whitetail. And so they look at these deer imagining that, okay, that deer's got a 200-pound body, whereas it's significantly less. And so sometimes it's been helpful for us in the past that, we learn that, hey, these bucks are tremendously smaller. And we've got a couple videos on our YouTube right now that if anybody's interested, they can watch those. And hopefully it's able to answer a lot of questions about just how these deer are built. They're just, to me, they're my favorite animal to hunt. They're an extremely intriguing to watch, and just they're incredible animals. And so we're trying to also just teach people more about them. They're kind of forgotten in the deer community, and they don't have a super big area, of where you can hunt them. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do is learn more about them.
So what's their, I guess, primary diet? Like, is it like the plains out or the prairie out here where they're just mainly feeding on sagebrush and different grasses? Is it kind of like that in Mexico?
Yeah, they're definitely browse animals, and so they're eating a lot of mesquite, a lot of little green leaves off of mesquite trees, ironwood trees, ocotillo. They actually eat a lot of cholla cactus. We'll see trail camera pictures where these deer come in and they have cholla stuck on their face, their neck, their body. In fact, we have a YouTube video right now with some javelina that have the cholla stuck all over their face. Javelina are the same way. They utilize the cholla cactus not just for the food supplement, but also for the moisture that's in it as well. But they're browse animals. They eat more of the little woody, branched trees and leaves than they do the grasses. But they also get down into the little tiny forbs and stuff in the grasses. They eat some buffel grass and things like that. But it's very different from your country out there. We don't in this desert environment in Mexico. There is no sagebrush. There aren't the prairie grasses that you have out there. It's just a completely different type of vegetation. And, it's like anything. It takes a few years to learn what constitute good Coues deer habitat and what, maybe to stay away from. But there's another buck. This is a buck that I killed. We just put this video out today on YouTube. Real palmated buck. This is why we wanted to kill him, is because of this palmation right here. This extra inline coming off of there. You can just see how palmated and heavy this buck is. Really cool buck. I killed him on the second morning of the hunt this year.
So did you have him targeted for a while? Like, you're like, okay, that's my deer. I've been watching him for a while.
Actually, the ranch that we killed that buck on, it's the first year it was that we've ever hunted that ranch. It was the second day on that ranch. We had some trail camera pictures, and we tell the story on YouTube. Go check it out on YouTube. But we everybody in camp wanted to kill that buck because it had that palmation. It was really cool. And in order to be fair, we drew straws and we put it on a rotation, and whoever drew the best number, they got to hunt it the first day, and the second best number the second day, and so on and so forth. And after we went through that rotation, the plan was to go back, and I drew the second day and killed him on the second day. So, and it was a water hole hunt. We got the kill shot on video. It's pretty neat stuff, being able to see those deer at 25, 30 yards away, and be able to harvest them with a rifle at such close distances. It's really a chip shot. It's finding them and locating them and then just sitting them out, waiting them out, just like you guys sit in tree stands back east. We do the same thing oftentimes with water holes here. So
one of the things is, since we've started posting a lot more on social media and YouTube and that stuff, and we've had several people ask that, man, those deer, they just look docile. They're not concerned with you being there. You're hunting a high fence, or you're hunting, you're hunting on a farm or something. And all of our stuff is free range, 100% fair chase. We don't do any high fence stuff. Part of it is, in my opinion, is just sitting in a ground blind. You're being still, you're quiet, you got your scent control going, and they have no idea that you're there. And it's one of the few ways that you're able to get, sometimes less than 10 yards from some of these deer, and they have no idea that you're there. You're able to watch them in a completely raw way. They're completely docile, they're completely relaxed and comfortable, and sometimes you're able to get the opportunity to watch these deer like that without a ground blind, but it's at 1,000 yards, and looking through a spotting scope, and when with your naked eye, they're 17 yards away, and you can watch and hear the water drip off of their mouth when they take their head up out of the water. And it's addicting to watch these deer in that way, for sure.
Well, that's even like here in South Dakota, that's how a lot of people even archery antelope hunt.
Yeah,
right.
Just
sure.
because they're so hard to get close to with their bow and stuff, that sitting on a water hole sometimes just the easiest way to do it.
It is, and it's fun. This is a buck that we actually glassed up on a more mountainous ranch. In Mexico, there's kind of two different classifications of ranches. There's desert ranches and there's mountain ranches. The mountain ranches have bigger country that we use binoculars to glass for the deer. It's really a Western style of hunting. You could be glassing at deer that are a mile away with 1556 Swarovskis or BTXs or Kawa, big eyes. There's different ways to go about it, but you could literally find and locate deer that are a mile or more away. And some guys are really into that. And then some guys are really into more desert ranches that we're talking about now, where you're sitting water and everything is up close and personal, and we're running trail cameras, and we have target hit list deer that we're specifically going after and trying to wait out. But we just want people to know that we offer both types of ranches, both styles of hunting, and your success rate is going to be nearly the same either way. Some guys just have a preference, one versus the other, and we're not here to preach or say one is better than the other. But what do you guys, what does the hunter want? What do they like? What do they enjoy doing? And that's what we're kind of trying to cater to, is what the hunter wants, and not try to.
But if you were to say one's better, it sounds like you'd pick in the ground blind over a watering hole.
If I had to, if I had to, pick one or the other, that I was trying to kill the biggest buck of my life, I would absolutely pick a desert ranch over water, hands down. Not that there aren't giants that come from the mountains, but anybody that's hunted in Mexico for a long time will probably agree that the desert produces just a giant genetic older age class type of buck and opportunity at bucks that are just mega giants. and you can find them more often there than you can in the mountains. When you're hunting in the mountains, you're glassing, and whatever comes your way is what you're going to see that day or that hunt. In the desert ranches, we can get trail cameras out and we can say that water hole has nothing coming into it, that one has nothing coming into it, this one has a medium-sized buck into it, and this one has a giant that's coming into it. So where are you going to sit? So you can go to the specific area. But on a mountain ranch, if you don't glass the hillside that the big buck is living on that trip, you're never going to know he's there. So there's pros and cons. I love hunting water holes. I absolutely love it. I've killed my top three biggest bucks ever have come off of water. And so, I'm sold on it, but I love glassing for them as well. I wouldn't ever turn down an opportunity to go glass them up on a quality mountain ranch either. So
I don't really know much about, I guess, weather in Mexico, but say you have a really wet year, and like for instance, this past summer it was pretty wet, and we tried resorting to water holes where we glass them for antelope with our bows, and there's so many water holes that you couldn't really, I guess, locate antelope. Is it kind of like that with deer down there? If it's a wet summer or whatever, like there's just so much water, you don't know where to really go.
Yeah, a big thing is, and over the last 10 years, we've been beating our heads against the wall trying to come up with exact answers for questions like that, and we've got a lot of different theories. We've had extremely wet years where deer, I think that there's a lot more water in their feed, and when there's a lot more water in their feed, I believe that they don't have to water quite as much. We had a drought year like this season that we're just coming out of. And we had several bucks that we have history with that were notorious for going big periods of time without water in years past. And this year, I believe that with the drought, it caused maybe some of these bucks to need to water a little bit more. There wasn't as much water in the feed, and so them coming into water, we got a little bit of a heat wave, and I think that that definitely helped. We've kind of chalked it up to when a deer's thirsty, it's going to come to water, and we joke about it. Every year, our opinions on it, change a little bit, and every year is a little bit different. I killed a buck on a really, really good rain year. I killed a buck that was watering sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, and he hadn't had a 24-hour period where he had not come to water in a couple weeks. That it was literally every day, most of the time, 2 or 3 times in a 24-hour period was he coming to water. And that was on a super high rain year, a phenomenal rain year. I had the buck that I was hunting personally this year on the drought year. He was not regular, and he was a big deer. He was a good deer, and so I took a little bit of a gamble hunting him, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him killed this year. But it just ultimately it depends on the deer. It depends on the scenario, and I think it can absolutely affect it. But I think ultimately the deer is going to do what it does, and you just got to put yourself in the right place at the right time.
Because I know you mentioned that you do some mule deer hunts down there too. Is that more just like strictly on the mountainside, or do you hunt them over the watering hole too, or?
You can hunt the mule deer over water. The mule deer out there live in almost perfectly flat country. The mule deer down there, for the most part, the ranches that we have anyway, don't go into the mountains. They're in the desert flats, cholla, mesquite, ironwood, knee-high yellow grass, and absolutely you can hunt them over the water. They do some high racking a lot of times down there. That's not my favorite cup of tea, is to high rack, but they do that down there, and we have the ability to sell hunts that way. but for the most part, we will sit water for the mule deer. Sometimes they'll put feed stations at the water holes, so the deer are coming in for feed and for water. And before anybody hates on us for that, it is legal down there, but also the deer don't use it as regularly. You can't pattern the deer like you can maybe in some areas with feeders and that type of thing. It's during the rut, these mule deer will travel 10, 12, 15 miles overnight chasing does and bird dogging and looking for, these deer. So they will come into the water stations. They'll drink, and having that feed there to supplement their diets is just one more way to entice them and to keep them in an area. The feed is there to really try to keep them there year round, as opposed to wandering off to the neighbors' ranches. They'll come into the water. But yeah, we have mule deer, and we don't sell a lot of mule deer hunts. We're getting into that more and more. We have a few decent ranches. Coos deer is obviously our primary that we do a lot of. We have also, that's a javelina skull, kind of a unique little animal that looks like a hairy pig. It's not a hog, but they're fun to shoot. A lot of our hunts, you can throw in a javelina for nothing, and just shoot one if you see one. Most of the ranchers don't mind that at all, but it's a fun, unique animal. They're fun to shoot with a bow. They're fun to shoot with a rifle. The cowboys love when you bring them javelina meat. To me, it stinks. It's not some meat that I want to eat, but the cowboys love making tamales out of it and tacos out of it. The other thing we've got down there is Gould's turkey. And just because of geography and where you guys are located, I know a lot of guys back east are really into Gould's turkey. Well, they're into turkey hunting, and those that are chasing the Royal Slam are in need of Gould's turkey. We have very easy, affordable Gould's turkey hunts down there as well that can afford people the privilege or opportunity of rounding out their Royal Slam, if that's what you're into. Most of the hunts are 100% successful, 3-day hunts. A lot of times we kill turkey, the first day or two, but it's a really, really cool opportunity. We're going down, Kade, Connor, and myself, next month to get some video and start really promoting that for next year as well. We've got some great ranches.
Is that something you could get, like a turkey, a coos deer, and like a javelina all at once, or is there different seasons for that?
Yeah, really, the deer and the javelina you could get in the deer hunt. The season for deer and javelina does not run concurrently with the April-May turkey season. So,
okay.
If a guy had a bow or a shotgun and was hunting turkey and a javelina came in, most of the time the cowboys are going to be really happy, and we could arrange that with you, that if a javelina came in and you wanted to shoot it, we can arrange that for you to do so, but you just won't be able to bring the meat or the hide or the skull home, because you're killing it outside of that regulated season. You'd basically just be donating the meat to the cowboys, who would absolutely love you for it, but you wouldn't be able to bring it home at that point.
And then when you're at these ranches, how much are the cowboys out there working while you're hunting, or do you kind of set like, hey, we'll be hunting these times on this side of the ranch if you don't mind us like staying away from that till we're done?
Let me answer that with a quick story. If you look at this deer right here above my shoulder, that's the second biggest deer that I have ever killed. And I was sitting a ground blind for that deer, and I was on, I think, day 5 of the hunt. And at about, I want to say it was right about 12:15, 12:20. As I look out my ground blind, I had one drinker that was about 70 yards out in front of me. And then to my right, there was a dirt tank. And deer would come into both of them. And if I would have to move, depending on where the deer came in, to shoot them. Well, at about 12:15 in the afternoon, the cowboy drove his truck literally right between my ground blind and this drinker that was 70 yards in front of me. And that's right where this buck had been coming, with the trail camera pictures. And I was really kind of mad and angry in my mind, thinking, this guy, he just ruined it for me. Game over. Should I go home? Should I move? What should I do? And I talked myself down and I said, look, just stay here. You never know what's going to happen. It's a long day. It's only 12:15. An hour from now, 2 hours from now, 3 hours from now, things settle down. Everything could go back to normal and it could be fine. Well, I kid you not, 10 minutes after the truck drove by, this buck right here came in to get a drink and I shot him. And at the time, it was the biggest buck that I've ever killed. I've since killed a bigger one. But the moral of the story is, yes, the cowboys are out working. Sometimes they do move things around or change your game plan. Most of the time, I would say very, very seldom has it ever hurt us or been a negative factor. I don't know what you want to weigh in, but they're out there, they're out and about. If you tell them where you're going, oftentimes they'll avoid you, but it's really minimal what type of, true disruption they put into your hunt.
For sure. I agree. I think one of the things for me is a lot of the times, I speak very little Spanish. They don't speak any English a lot of the time. So even with the language barrier, they're still people. They don't want to just, be a jerk to you. They want to help you out. And so even stuff like, that's one of the reasons we leave the deer meat down there with them. They do a lot for us, throughout the year. They pick up a lot of sheds for you. They'll keep an eye out and as to where the deer are, what the deer are doing. They spend every day, all day on these ranches, and they know them backwards and forwards. And so, a lot of times for us, we'll go down there and we've given them shirts and, hats, and we give them the meat from the javelina and the meat from our deer, and
knives, flashlights.
We'll kill coyotes while we're down there. And so ultimately it helps them. And so they, they'll try to help you out. They want it to be, they can't necessarily be your best friend in the whole world, but they do want to be helpful. And most of the time, if you can, be a little bit generous and, you shoot a javelina, you give them the meat for it. They want to stay out of your hair. They're still a working cattle ranch. So they still have, requirements for the chores and crap that they got to get done throughout their day. But, if they're happy with you and there's that, they enjoy having you down there most of the time. So if they got a project that can wait and they push it back a week to avoid your hunt, a lot of the times from my experience, they will, just because they're still people. They still want to be helpful and they still want you to have a good time, because you being on the ranch a lot of the time makes the ranch better for them.
Yeah.
So.
And then too, when you consider these ranches are 20, 50, 100 square miles, it's big country. It's just rare that they're stepping on anybody's toes. There's too much country for it to be a problem most times.
Okay, and then I guess I just had one question about the ranches. Like these big ranches that are 50, 70, 100 square miles. I know you talked about side-by-sides earlier. For your clients that are hunting that ranch, do they have access to a side-by-side to get from point A to point B?
Again, it depends on the hunt that we're selling them and what their circumstances are. If we had some guys that were coming from back east and wanted to come and it made more sense to fly in and use some of our equipment, then we can accommodate that and make something like that happen and work. If we got guys that are from Tucson or Southern California or, Arizona, New Mexico, to even Texas, these guys are all within driving, shot of Nogales, where we cross into Mexico. And in most of those cases, they're just going to drive their own vehicles bring their own side-by-sides, ATVs, trucks, whatever it is. They would bring their own equipment and use it. But again, we're not trying to exclude anybody. We're trying to make things work for people to bring them down there. And sometimes just a little brainstorming and flexibility is all it takes. And we can bring new people down to these ranches.
Okay. Yeah, and I know in our last episode when it was just Kade and myself, that's one thing that really stuck out to me was that you guys are there to accommodate the hunter and you can work through those loopholes. And I feel like that sets you apart from a lot of even outfitters in the States. Like they're just like, hey, be here at this time and you're on your own. Whereas you guys are doing all the legality, legwork, and all that stuff. So I think that's really cool.
For sure.
We got a lot of stuff. A lot of guys are limited. A lot of our clients have been, retired military. A lot of them have been working state jobs or working, blue collar workers. And, most of our clients aren't these super high end wealthy guys. People a lot of the time struggle. We get calls every day of, hey, can I buy one tag? A lot of outfitters down in Mexico, they won't sell you a tag unless you can put a group together that, I need a group of 4 or 5 if I'm going to even consider selling you a tag. Some guys won't run archery hunters down there. A lot of outfitters will limit what they're willing to take down there because it's more work for them. And our realization and our belief is that the biggest members, the majority of the members of the hunting community are blue collar guys. Firefighters, police officers, retired military. That's the core of our group of guys going down there. And so, we'll do everything that we can to be able to get them down there. We'll absolutely sell single hunts. Sometimes that might mean that they have to share a camp with somebody else, but we want to accommodate absolutely everybody that we can to go down there, because it's an amazing experience. It's more than just a deer tag. It's more than just a hunt. It's an experience that's really hard to explain without doing it yourself. And so for us, we want to give as many people that opportunity as we can.
Well, do you have any questions?
No, I love the idea of it, and I want to look into it because I even like you mentioned about Coues deer, like I don't have any experience with Coues deer other than maybe some videos online or like he said, meat eater or something like that. But I know it's something that I definitely would love to go try doing, get more experience with it, learn the animals more.
It's a blast. We love it. We're hooked on it, and I got my boys hooked on it, and so we're just never going to let it go at this point. But one of the problems our customers find is they get down there once and they got to go back again and again and again, and they get hooked on it just like we do, and it's a blast. And it's the type of thing that you can go back. It's not ridiculous priced. I mean, it's like we've been saying all along, it's working man hunting, and we try to make it affordable for everybody to be able to get down there.
Okay, and then I know you mentioned it in the beginning of the video, but if someone wants to set up a hunt with you, I'll just set you up on social media or your website. Do you have an email that they could reach out to you at?
Yeah, our email is just maddhunts@gmail.com. We have all of the majority of our hunts right now are listed on our website, which is just maddhunts.com. Our YouTube, you can look us up on YouTube and see a lot of the stuff that we're doing on there. We've got a bunch of videos and a lot more to come. And that's just look up MaddHunts on YouTube.
And it is Madd, MADD Hunts. Just like our last name is Maddock, MADD Hunts is how we spell it. So when you go to the website, when you go to YouTube, that's the best way to look us up. And my phone number is on the website. You're welcome to call me. You're welcome to text me. But if you go onto our website, that's my phone number that's there. I'll be the one to answer that phone. It's not anybody but me. So if you go to social media, you could end up talking to Kade or Connor, depending on whose Instagram you're working through or whose email you're working through. But it's all there on the website.
For sure. Yeah, anybody that has questions or anything too, feel free to reach out and ask. I mean, I'm not trying to just sell you on a hunt. I'm not trying to just put you in this box and, force you to do something. We get questions all the time, and we'd love to talk to everybody that's interested in talking about it. So.
We have years worth of trail camera pictures. I mean, tens of thousands of trail camera pictures that are listed on the photo section of our website. And we've started to be really consistent with putting out videos on YouTube, some shorts and some, 5, 10, 15-minute long videos on YouTube. Excellent representation of what we're doing down there, what the country looks like, what the roads and the ranch houses and what a lot of that, looks like and the types of things that you'd be experiencing if you went down with us. So those are good places to look and kind of get a better sense of what we're all about.
Awesome. And I guess kind of finish things off, if you had one statement to tell someone who might be teetering on the edge, like, I don't know if I should do it or if I should, what would you tell that person? Like, despite all the stigmas of Mexico, which we talked about and stuff, like, what would be your selling point?
The first thing that I'd tell them is to call me. I'd love to just talk about it. And ultimately everybody, it seems like they want to go, but there's one little thing that might be holding them back. And more than not, everybody that comes to mind is like, oh, the financial side of it. And the truth is that's not usually the case. When somebody doesn't end up wanting to go, that thing that's holding them back, usually it's something that is very minuscule, that seems like a much bigger deal than it is, or they just need to ask the right question or have somebody answer it in the right way. In my honest belief is just give it a try. It's a hunt that honestly, I can't think of another hunt that's very similar to it. Just the experience that it brings, every bit of it, from the second you cross the border to all the way to when you cross the border back coming home, all of it is an experience, and it's a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like the way I'd want to go to Mexico. Everybody else wants to go to Cancun and stuff, but
for sure,
I agree.
Well, gentlemen, I don't think we have anything. Do you guys have any closing thoughts or anything for us?
No, we'd love to have you down sometime. If that's something that either you are interested in doing, we could definitely work something out with you guys. But any of your listeners out there, viewers out there, we'd love to talk to them. We'd love to answer their questions. It's what we live for. So you're not being a burden if you call me direct. You're not being a burden if you text or social media, direct message us. We eat, drink, and breathe this stuff every day, and so we're here to answer your questions. We're here to make this become a reality if it's something that you're interested in doing. And like Kade said, it's an experience. It's not just a hunt. It's not just a trophy. It's not just a trip. It really is an experience, and there's just no other way to put it. It's a great time. So we'd love to talk to anybody that has interest in it.
Awesome. Well, I know we'll definitely be in contact with y'all in the future, try to get something set up. And
for sure,
I just want to say thank you for running the awesome operation that you guys are doing. It's really in depth and really helps the hunters that want to get down there. And thank you for your time for being on here and chatting with us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for inviting us. We enjoy it.
For sure.
Oh yeah, anytime. But all right, well, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.